Okay, everybody. Once again, I have got Amy Ledin on with me on another one of our Hey Docs episodes. Thank you, Amy, so much for agreeing to be on the show again. I know people got so much out of the last episode, so I cannot wait to dive into what we're going to be talking about today. As far as in the event that somebody is on this podcast, didn't catch our other one, do you mind just giving us a quick overview of who you are and how you got to be where you're at in the business and fitness world?
Yeah. So I'm Amy Ledin, as you mentioned. I am in the wellness space. I would say fitness. We have now been in business for 18 years. We were early adopters. It was before Facebook and before social media. We were on forums, which was really people that were looking for it, right? And from there, we learned that we had a hobby that we just made a whole lot of money at. And from there, as we started to grow our business, we found sometimes blessings and sometimes holes in what we were doing and what was either holding us back. And now being into our 18th year, we've never spent a penny on advertisements. We're pretty proud of that. We've just grown authentically. We have 175,000 followers on Facebook. We've got private groups that we have. And it's really honestly been because we've added a lot of value over the years. And I have a cookbook that I released years ago, and it was all from a blog that I gave all of our secret sauce. Like, I'm a big believer in you share it all. People will still want to work with you anyways. And that's led to where we are now. We primarily work with women ages 45 to 55. I'd say 95% of our clients are female. We do have a few men here and there, which I love working with. And that's where we are now. Currently, I'd say we're back into a growth phase. We've had a couple of years where it wasn't as much. We found our way and got really clear on who our avatar was. And that's really helped us get right back into growth.
That's wonderful. I know on our last episode, we talked a lot about goals and being intentional with setting different goals and whatnot. And this time I really want to talk a little bit more about vision and maybe how that works with our business and in our personal life, and just how do those two work together? Do you mind? I know we're just going to jump right in because I know you will just have a lot to share with us. Let's talk a little bit about vision and business a little bit.
I think one, having a vision it's imperable. Like, you have to have a vision for where you want to go. Even if it's like some crazy lofty goal, what you don't realize is your brain is going to go towards what it is thinking about, so if you don't have a place you're aiming for, think about an arrow. Like, it doesn't have a place to go if you're not aiming it at something. So you really do need to have a vision for where you want to be. And it starting with small ones, maybe in the first year, and then sharing that with your team. We used to not share our goals. I always thought that they just assume we want to grow. But now that we have gotten really clear on what we're trying to do, I find that they jump in and want to help us really reach those goals. But it also allows them to see, I'll let them share, what's your finance, where do you want to be in this company at some point? So that I'm aware of what they want, what is their goal? Because my goal as a business owner is to help them get all their dreams come true. That's just how I work. If I don't even know what they're aiming for with their vision, then how can I even help them with that? And vice versa. If we see that it's collaboration over competition, it's always about how we can collaborate as a team, you'll grow so much faster. So it's sitting down, and I was really clear on my vision. I even wrote a letter to myself. I dated it. I signed it for where I want to be in 5 years from now. I think it's really important too, to put timelines on it. Otherwise it just never happens. It's like the person that says they want to lose 20 pounds. By when? Not again. You may not get there, but you've got to have these deadlines and timelines to those goals, and bringing in with the vision. Okay, you're going to want to create some core values. You're going to want to create a mission statement. Every day when I get up, when I come to the office, I have a folder in my email that I go to that I read out loud audibly my mission statement, reminding me why I'm doing this every day. So that when I open up a client email, I'm already in the right state and frame of mind, that I'm like, man, I am changing her life. I need to give her all of my attention. But we quickly lose that if we don't read some of those positive things we've gotten. So I save intentionally emails from clients that have really changed. I'm like, wow, I've really changed her life. And I read 3 to 4 of those every single morning along with my mission statement. So I'm like, I'm dialed in, I'm ready to get to work. And then from there, I started to just take it deeper and deeper into that web, but first starting with the vision.
Yeah.
So Jill, really quick. So this is a cool story, but when I first came to work for Jill, I was able to go out to a client's office. And this was my first eye-opening experience with a vision, right? In an office who had a vision. But I went to this office and it just felt good. Everything in the office felt good. Everything was cohesive. They were an extremely successful office, good energy. The team was unified. And as I sat and talked to the doctor and his wife, they talked about how they had gone around and written scripture from the Bible on the sheetrock before they finished building the building out.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? This is so cool. Are you kidding me? And she was like, no, it was so important that we kept our focus on why we were here, right?
Yes.
And that's why we did this. We went through, so that was obviously their vision, their culture, and that's how they chose to create that. And it literally permeated everything in this office.
Yes.
And it was my eye-opening experience of, this is a big deal. We're stepping into this space that's going to consume, let's be honest, the majority. We typically spend more time at work than we do at home a lot of the time. So if we haven't been intentional with creating that culture, that vision, then what happens? I mean, in my mind, I see like ping pong balls, right? Like we're just kind of being thrown around.
Yes.
So I think sometimes in the beginning, and I've had a few doctors say this, a lot of who we work with, Amy, are startup practices. So they're newer doctors, they're newer to entrepreneurship. And I think they get really overwhelmed with the idea of what do you mean create a culture? What do you mean create a vision? Yep. So peel back some of those layers for us. Like what's an easy way to start this process?
I think starting with core values. We were in our Taste Syndicate with Ed Milet and Andy Frizella. And at our very first meeting, and we paid $50,000 each to be in this for a year. And they brought in the best of the best coaches. And the first lesson we had was from Andy, and it was, what are your core values for your brand? We didn't even have core values, like not on paper. And that's the key. You got to do the homework. And I think the perfectionist in people feel like it's too much. It's written in stone. They can change. I mean, ours have changed over the years, but to have something, again, then your brain has direction. Your brain has somewhere to go. And so we first started we did it as an exercise for the team. We let everyone come back with what they felt like our core values would be. And then from there, we picked, I think 7. Now we only just have 5, but we picked 7 that we felt one of your core values might be do the right thing. Another one is go above and beyond. Like ours is we go above and beyond for our customer. And so it's also great as a business owner to then fall back on that when people are not performing. Listen, this is one of our core values. Like our core value is, did you go above and beyond for the customer? No, you did not. But it's a lot easier to direct them in the right place. You're not even having arguments anymore. It's literally, okay, look at the core values up on the wall. I mean, Andy at First Form, they carry their core values in their pocket, in their wallet. And Andy, as like a test, he'll go around and ask, what are the core values here? You need to know those by heart so that you know what you stand for. So it's starting there. And then it's, again, going through like the exercise of your characteristic traits. You may not be there yet. I remember the first time I started to write out like my best self characters, and I'm like, I'm not this, I'm not a great listener. But if you don't put those down, you're not going to aim for it. Like you're really about teaching people to shift their identity, like from who they are to who they want to be. Yes. And if you don't put on paper who you want to be, you're going to stay where you are. Like you're not going to become the person that I'm a big time interrupter. I had to start writing down. My best self doesn't interrupt people. My best self pauses and listens. Did it take me a long time to get there? Absolutely. But if I would have never written that down, guess what? No intention in my brain to stop when someone's talking, because you're going to continue that cycle. So it's first starting with those core values. And then asking your team like what their goals are, but also sharing. Tell them where you want to be in a year from now. Tell them where you want to be in 5 years from now. People love the ambition. And so when they hear it, like, wow, I might be a part of a team that wants to be a $10 million company. Holy cow, I want to stay here for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying there. And I think what I want our listeners to take away from this is you don't have to be perfect from the beginning. You don't have to have it nailed down, because I can say the same thing. When I started my business, I had vision of where I wanted to go. And I may have had some values that I thought were important at the time. But as my business aged and myself as a business owner aged, my values have changed. And that's something that has become a core structure within even our company, just like yours, where we start off every single meeting that we have with, going over our core values, because what it does is it allows then my team and myself to make value-based decisions. And when we've got team members and even ourselves as entrepreneurs making decisions based on our values, it takes some of that feeling out of it a little bit, I think.
Yes.
And I would assume you would echo this too, where now it's easy to make maybe even some of the hard decisions, because does this decision go against my value? It does. Is this not a good client for me to work with because I don't think they're going to fit in with what we're doing? It does. And so it's not personal. I'm not trying to make it personal. It is about the business component
It
there.
is. I actually had that right after we created our core values. We were in Vegas. We do a conference. We used to go every year and do a gym conference there. And we had brought out this physical therapist with us and hired her to come and work at the event and pay her for it and everything. Well, when she got there and we got getting to know her, and she wanted to do some future like collaborations with us. And she was one of the best at what she did. But she made the mistake of telling us that she worked for a chiropractor and that she was like doing stuff behind his back, like in another practice. And it went against our core values, like immediately. And you know what? It was actually really clear for me it was a hard pass. And in the past, I might have justified, oh, but she's going to be so good for the brand and we're going to make more money. But because I have my core values, I'm like, do the right thing. This is not do the right thing. Because if I was that business owner, I would want to know. And so it's been easier to let go of people, and it's easier to hire people when you're like, okay, here's the core values. You just don't meet it, or you do. It's been a lot, because I tend to have a hard time, like with they say what, fire fast, hire slow, or something like that, right?
Yep.
And I would let these cancers stay in the business far too long. Whereas with her, we went back to the hotel room that night and I said, oh my gosh, it's not going to work out with her. Like, I already know. And Eric said, what do you mean? I go, that was the hugest like red flag there, was what's she going to do shouldn't have good in that area. And then that's going to be a reflection later in our brand. What happens when she does something to us behind our back?
That's exactly right. Before I came to work with Jill, I did your future self formula, with group. And I don't know if it was your first one or not, but it was the future self formula where you had me as an individual create my own core values. Right. Yes. And then when I came to work for Jill, she already had her core values in place. And as I looked at mine and as I looked at hers, I noticed there was a lot of overlap. But what I also have noticed is that I've started to take on my core values at work in my personal life. And so many times at work, and this is one thing I love about working with Jill, is she'll say to me when I bring something to her, what's our core value, Rachel? And I'm like, oh, honesty, right? And I'm like, oh, I have to have
honest in our assessment.
Yes, honest in my assessment. And it's when I have a hard conversation that maybe needs to happen with a doctor that I'm like hesitant to have. She's very straightforward and, hey, what is that core value? And so it's really taught me to pull on those core values as an employee, as a team member. And then it gives me that confidence to know I'm in alignment with what she wants me to do, right? I'm in alignment with our business plan and where she's headed and her goals. And I do think that as a team member, it gives you this peace of mind and this confidence that maybe you wouldn't have had. You're questioning, would I really have, should I have done that? Should I have said that? Know when you're in alignment with those core values that you're doing exactly what they want you to do.
Yes. And take it a step further, then you start to actually attract it, because now that they've become what you embody, It's the friendships that you meet. You aren't going to meet, like, the people you connect with are going to be like-minded, which is really cool that when you start to dissect your core values, you're like, no wonder we overlap. This is why my energy is definitely connected with you. And you probably see that with even the businesses you attract. You're not going to attract a lazy person if one of your core values is hard work. You're just not. And we say that all the time, even in our brand. I'm not going to attract the person that's looking for the easy way out when we already say that results are earned, not guaranteed. The same thing, you will start, and it just helps your business really work better when we're all on that same page.
Yeah, no, I think that's so right on. So let's talk a little bit about, so we've talked about the value component and just how important that is, and knowing that we don't have to start with our claim it and stick it and claim it for the rest of our career. It can change as we evolve. And I think there's another thing that we have to think about, and that it goes along with our why, right? Why are we creating these? Why, and how can this help us be more successful or whatnot? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. I have an exercise that I make all my clients do. Actually, Dean Graziosi, he is like the originator of this, where he called it 7 layers deep. I take it 5 layers deep. So it's like, why do you want insert make more money? Why do you want to lose weight? And then you answer, and that's usually your surface answer. Everybody's going to say, I just want to fit in my clothes, or I just, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Why do you want to fit into your clothes? So you take the answer to the first one and put it in your second layer. Okay, why do you want to fit into your clothes? Well, because in the morning when I put them on, it's really what changes my state. Okay, why do you want to change your state? Because I had a mom that was, depending on the day that she tried on things, was hit or miss with how she felt. Okay, why is that important to you? And it really just keeps taking it deeper and deeper, where then you're like, oh my gosh, it really comes back. Like for me, the reason why I wanted to be in shape is I never wanted to have the pain that my mom had. But that wasn't what showed up at the surface. For me, it was like, I want to look good. I want to be able to go in the store and buy anything I want. But the deeper ones are what's going to keep you driven to your why. Like I tell clients all the time, you're going to forget your why. And this is why we do this exercise, because then I'm going to send this right back to you, this little worksheet that you did on your 5 layers. And let's talk about that. Let's, and then the other thing I probably do with the why is I make you write a letter. You're going to write a letter. If I change nothing about myself, and this can be for business too. If I change nothing about my habits or anything, where will I be 5 years from now? And if I change everything that I want, where will I be? And I do this with fat loss a lot, because I want you to remember the pain if you stay here. Like, again, we make decisions based on pain or pleasure, but I also want you to cast the vision of what you look like 5 years from now if the decisions that you make are aligned with that person. And then reading, again, our brains are their programs. It's like a computer program that needs software updates. For most people, daily. I need the daily reminder of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's a lot of times where you pull these, anytime I've had someone write the letter to themselves, they're like, wow, this was really hard. I don't want to stay here. I'm reading, it's just going to give me the same crap over and over, what I don't want. Someone in business that's not growing. Okay, then let's cast the vision of what does it look like 5 years from now if I'm doing my routines and I'm having weekly meetings with my team, all these things, because you're either growing or you're dying. That's just the bottom line.
Yep. And I can't help but think when I listen to you say this, that if we can really capture our why, and I'm going to go more business than personal here, but if we can capture that, I want to be a $2 million practice. Okay, why do you want to be a $2 million practice? Right. I want to be a $2 million practice because I want to help patients. Why do you want to help patients? Whatever that breakdown is, I can't help but think if we can really identify that then directly also relates into the culture that's happening within your practice or within your business. Because if you can identify just not that, well, I just want to make more money. Great. All of us want to make more money. But if you can, I've never heard this. Sorry. I've just never heard this, like breaking it down like an onion in these 5 layers deep.
Yes.
And then, okay, now if everybody understands that, and then you correlate that with culture, and we can do anything, right?
Yeah.
And even if that why is changing, if it starts one way and we have to pivot a little bit, but I still can't help but believe it just continues to pour into the culture.
Totally.
Yeah. Can you talk to that a little bit?
I think if you had your team actually do this thing, one, do the practice of going 5 layers deep. One, what really drives people, like it may be money on the surface, but a lot of it is financial freedom. A lot of it is, I want to be able to give for my kids what I haven't been able to. And when you get deep into the emotion is what drives us, because our brain doesn't know the difference between reality and fake, but it knows emotion and feeling. It's why the gratitude practice and things like that are so important, because it doesn't know if it's make believe or real, but if you're having a feeling, that is going to really drive you. So it is getting to the emotional side of why you want this. And then as a team, seeing what everybody else is saying in theirs, you'll see over time, if you do this every quarter, they slowly are gravitating towards your core values. Like they're looking, let's say that one of yours is contribution. You want to make a difference in your community. You're not just here to be a dentist. You're here to, I want to make a stand. And my money is, some people, their money is their business, their success there is just money they want to spend elsewhere. Like I want to help a nonprofit adoption agency. So for me, I got to really get clear on that why every day, because sure, I'm working for money, but what I'm really working for is the opportunity to help other women for free. And that lights me up. That is what makes me not hit the snooze in the morning. Whereas you tell me more money, you tell me, those all mattered at the beginning, but the deeper I take it, okay, I got to put in my full day today, because this could be the difference between me getting this nonprofit started.
Yeah. And I think too, I think we always struggle in our industry, and I think a lot of industries, of people joining a company, a team, whatnot, because it's a job or because they want a career out of it. And I think when you can really identify the depth of the why, and somebody can see the vision of the leader in the company and be like, oh, they aren't just pushing me to answer the phones because they want me to answer the phones, but they're pushing me to answer the phones because they want that patient to have the best experience that they can have in their day when they call our office. I think it just totally flips the switch too with us in that component, as well as getting our team members bought out or sold out to, this is a career, not just a job where I'm just hopping in and I'm here till the next best thing comes along.
Totally. If they're already looking on Indeed, you already know, like they're like already checked out. So you've really got to keep your team, like you said, because the goal is to keep them forever. I always say to our team, we've had Eileen with us for over 10 years. Like but she's not driven. We learned through this exercise, she's really not driven by money anymore. She is driven by her contribution. And so if I can put her in charge, so I'll let her be the team leader in our community, and you're in charge of that, makes her feel so good. That's her contribution. Someone else, it might be getting X amount of clients and that they're working towards some number goal of, I wanted to be able to bring in 10 people. Awesome. But knowing all that really helps us have more success.
Yeah. No.
I think one of the things, just as entrepreneurs in general, that we struggle with, and we talked about this a little bit before, but during the hard times, like how do we keep focused on that why? Because the fact of the matter is, when you're an entrepreneur, your life actually doesn't stop, right? Like babies are still born. We still have sickness. We still have deaths in the family. There's things that happen that throw us off this course. And how do we come back center, or how do we help teach people to come back center during those hard times, which is where I feel like, Amy, you're like the shining star of this right here, right?
Yes.
How do you do it? And I think it's probably like a little bit of all of these things, but speak on that a little bit. What does that look like for you?
I think when I got cancer, I was a single mom. And so part of it, my first why was, I have to put food on the table, period. And so if I just sit in my misery and feel sorry for myself, then I'm not really going to be able to take care of my, but a lot of us get to that comfortable place where we're making ends meet. It's no different than weight loss. We get to a place where we're comfortable, we're liking how we look, but we're not quite where we want to be yet. And that's where, when obstacles start coming our way, that's our test. Are you going to stick to it? And I think it comes back, I would have not said this years ago, but it's our habits. This is where like our habits drive us. Like I remember listening to Lori and Chris Harder when they lost their dog a couple of years ago, and their dog, they don't have any children, and their dog was like their life. I swear it had its own social media. And when their dog died, Chris did a podcast on how Sure, maybe the first couple days, give yourself a mulligan. You might just be checked out. But he learned that, thank God I was doing all of these daily habits, because that's what kept me grounded. And so for me, it's truly anchoring my morning and my night to knowing that, you know what, these problems are still going to be here. I think if people would really start to learn that, and doing some practices in your brain. I brain dump. I talk a lot to myself. So let's say I have a big crisis in the brand. I'll stop and go, okay, is this a today problem? Can I solve this today? If like Eric and I will start brainstorming, I'll go, honey, drop that. That's a tomorrow problem. Meaning we're not discussing this today. We can wait till tomorrow, because a lot of people, like, you're trying to solve everything at once, and it's not even something that you need to be thinking about. So I will do that. And then I'll talk myself through it. Like when I'm waiting for, I just had tests this morning. I had my PET scans and CT scans. I could sit and be really worried for the next 4 to 5 days until I wait for my results. Or I could be like, okay, Amy, like I got in my car and I'm like, okay, you're not going to get results for 5 days. So what are you good? Is there anything that would make you feel better? And you just talk yourself through the elimination of, okay, there's nothing that I'm going to get right now for answers. So it's time for me to put this in the little compartment over here and get back into work. Of course, healthy. Like I wasn't always healthy where I would like completely get into this and to check out of this. And you don't want that either. You want to be able to find the balance, but it is taking yourself through. I just see a lot of power in like audible talking. Ask yourself, okay, so what can you do about that now, Amy? And use your name, like command yourself. When you use your own name, if you've ever seen the movie Matrix, like the Matrix has so many really cool, like lessons in it, but there's a part where Trinity is on the ground and she's getting ready to get beat up. And what she says is, get up, Trinity. She's talking to herself because she knew that her prefrontal cortex would take that command and go with it. So I tell myself, Amy, there's nothing you can do about it right now. And that will help put the brain to sleep in those areas, because otherwise it's really hard to be the best at your job. If you're like a dentist and you need to be like focused on someone's mouth and you're thinking about the fight you had at home or the issue that you had at the front desk, like you need to like have a little talk with yourself. Okay, what can I do about this now? Nothing. Okay, I need to give this patient everything I possibly can right now, and really try to compartmentalize it.
Yeah. Oh, such good information. So let's just talk a little bit about, we've talked about core values and we've talked about core statements and mission statements. What about the future self formula? Tell me a little bit, and I know you've touched on maybe it a little bit, but let's just dive into that, because again, I think there's the personal side of it, and I think there can be a business side of it too.
Yes. So I started Future Self Formula primarily because we were a fat loss company that I would see people lose the weight and then they'd be back like a couple of years later. And I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong here? I'm all about really just dissecting, okay, what makes this person come back? And it really comes down to, you didn't change who you are. You were just wearing the costume of the fat loss patient. You weren't like embodying it. So FSF, my course, it's like 12 weeks long, where you start with first it's your values. And then we create characters. So you're going to create your best self and your anti-self in all areas. I have my best health self. I have my best business self. Like, how am I showing up? And it's important to like create your best self possible, because again, your brain's going to start to gravitate towards that. And then from there, after you build your core values and your characters, then it's about goal setting and your routines. Like we dial into the routines, because you start to realize that so much of our success, it's coming from you personally and how you're showing up for you. So it was just it's a lot in 12. Everyone knows that later on, you almost want to go back through and do them again. I'm actually doing the FSF course in January. Like, I'm going to open it up again because I loved it for myself. We had a group of like 25 women that, I do a Zoom call once a week, but we also had a Facebook group. And again, it's collaboration that makes it so great for other people, because you see what their core values are. You see what their best self character is. And then you see their goals. And again, because you want to be around people that are 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. So when you see other people's goals, like I remember joining my first mastermind and meeting people that had crazy, awesome goals. And I'm like, okay, if that's possible for them, it's possible for me. So
Right.
it was bringing all of that in. And then at the end, the last thing that we do in FSF is anchoring, because you can have all of these things at your disposal. You can have your goals list, you can have your core values, but if you don't learn to change your state and take the action on that, then it's not going to happen. And so anchoring, I learned from Ed Milet, one of our first, Andy, his first thing was core values. Ed's first thing he taught us was anchoring. And the first thing he did was he's, listen, I'm going to take your finger. He goes, and I just want you to place your thumb on this middle knuckle, and you're going to close your eyes and you're going to think of one of the happiest moments of your life. And so he really wanted you to get into it. And he goes, okay, open your eyes. He's like, okay, now we're going to do it again. Go to your second most happy like time in your life. Really feel it. What are you wearing? What are you doing? And he had us do it like 3 or 4 times. And then he goes, okay, later on, he goes, okay, everybody touch their middle knuckle. You go to the place that you've been really working on anchoring. So I did this in every area of my life, because when I was in the thick of my cancer, I had stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer. My type of cancer has a less than 1% 5-year survival rate. So
Wow.
everyone that I would see around me was either dying, or no one had. There's only one guy I know of that he's been on my podcast that he's had it for 20 years. And I was always looking for evidence of having that. So but I would wake up in the morning in fear. Like that was my first place I would go, because it's like, I'm here, but oh my gosh, now I have to think about my cancer and I got to think about everything. So I started an anchoring practice where as soon as my feet touch the floor and you have to go through the exercise, I would close my eyes and I would squish my toes on the carpet, and it would go to gratitude, like what I'm so grateful for. And you have to do it several times, like every day for a couple weeks. But then eventually, as soon as my feet would hit the floor in the morning, guess where I went? I went to all the gratitude, all of these amazing, like stories that I had put in my head so that I could be intentional about it. I think with moms, working moms, when you come home, having an anchoring practice in your car before you walk in the door, remember like why you're a mom and why, because it's super easy to come in for me, myself. Like I just get busy and then I'm not like the soft, loving, touching mom that I know I need to be. And so if I could just sit in my car, and like an anchoring practice would be have an album, a photo album on your phone that says anchoring best self mom. And it's maybe like videos of your kids with you, anything that just gives
I
you the
love
warm
that tip.
fuzzies. So then when you walk in your door, you're totally remembering that. You can do the same thing for business. But it's like anchoring, like I read all of these emails from people. Wow, if I am really intentional about scheduling in, because you got to schedule it, because the world is designed to distract you right now. It wants you to be average. So if you're trying, it's like my kids say, we're not here to be average, we're here to be savage. And the way that you get there is through being very intentional with these anchoring. Lastly, I would say a great anchoring is make a video vision board. Okay. So like you've got your vision board on your, take it, it's called Mind Movie. It's an app where you can even add music to it. So you can put all your videos. It's like a big giant reel of all of your things. And when I would watch that on my like hardest of days through cancer, I'm like, I can beat it. I can fight it. Because a lot of people give up. They're like, I'm out. Whereas if I am reminded and I'm watching these videos of my children and I'm watching like add the music, because music can make people very emotional. There's a lot of power behind it. Then you're really dialed in to, you could use it as your why. Take a bunch of, let's say that you've put on some weight over the last couple of years, but you've got a lot of like old videos and photos. Take it and use it not as pain, but as where I can be. Because if you've found success in the past, that should tell you that you can do it again.
Yeah.
I love the anchoring habit, Amy. That was one of the things that I think whenever I went through the Future Self formula, anchoring was probably the biggest game. My core values and the anchoring were the 2 biggest game changers. And when I first came to work for Jill, I had just finished up that course, right? And she had sent me out on my first office visit alone. And I was there and I was so nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know I can do this because Jill believes in me and I wouldn't be here if I couldn't do it. Like, I know I can do it. And so my first thing when I got up in the morning, what did I do? I anchored, I danced. I got up and a little dance. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I was still feeling anxious. And I'm like, shoot, I don't know what else to do. So I get in my car and I'm headed to the office. And I see this mountain range, and I had anchored myself to the mountain range in Utah. And every time I saw it, I had a scripture that I repeated in my head. I can do all things through Christ who strengtheneth me. I see this mountain range and it just hit me. And I just filled from head to toe. I'm like, confidence, hope, reassurance. I could feel Jill. I could feel all the people that knew that I could do that in that moment. The best. I had it. I did it. It was an amazing visit. And I think anchoring is not talked about enough and is so undervalued. It truly is. Our mind is the most powerful thing that we have.
Totally.
It's our tool, right? It can get
Yes.
us through anything. And it's a matter of us, it's a muscle, using it to our benefit, understanding what it can do for us. And that was what the anchoring practice did for me. I feel like in business, it's one of the best things that we can have. It's one of our best tools.
Yes.
And to be able to pull that out of our toolbox in the way that you teach it, I think is a game changer for sure.
And if you're listening and you're like, okay, I don't even have the confidence to be there. Like, I don't even have the confidence to go do something like that. Then this is where the characters come in. So one of my favorite books is called The Alter Ego Effect. And he talks about how Beyonce. So Beyonce had a character she created called, her name was Sasha Fierce, because Beyonce actually came from, I think she sang mostly worship music when she was younger. And then when she'd have to get on stage and perform, she actually was like terrified of it. So she created this alter ego named Sasha Fierce. And the way our brain works is if it doesn't, because it doesn't like change, right? It really doesn't like anything that changes. So if you're suddenly wanting to be this like ambitious person, it's like, whoa, you're not doing this today.
Yep.
But if it's a character and a role you're playing, it does not see it as a threat. So you can even say, this is my health character, and my health character drinks a lot of water, and my health character takes the stairs, and my health character loves salads and loves vegetables and all these things. And if you make it a game, it does not have the resistance. What happens eventually, like with Beyonce, she retired, and her last album was like, I Am Sasha Fierce. And she said, it's time to retire her because I became her. I didn't need to play the role anymore. And so like with Rachel, it's like, sometimes it can even be like an artifact that you wear, because there's this whole power of enclosed cognition, which is dress for the person that you want to be, not who you are.
Yeah.
And they've done research, like even just someone wearing a white lab coat versus not, they would be 42% more focused than the person that didn't. And why? Because they had the lab coat on, and that meant that they needed to be focused and they needed to be dialed in. So finding the things that create your character to show up, because when I've had people on, or I've been on other podcasts where I'm like, I am so not worthy to be here, I just bring out my character, and my character can play that role until she's eventually there.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. I think about that a little bit, even as new business owners, when we're like, you got to fake it till you make it, right? A little bit is that putting that character in play when you don't feel like you're able to do that. And I know even for me, some of it is that just playing through scenarios in your mind. I've never thought of it necessarily as a character before, but I know even before I go on and speak, if I'm getting ready to do an event, I visualize myself doing that. It's, I guess, Jill, the speaker. And I feel like in my mind, if I have put myself there and I can see myself going through that and walking on the stage and doing the whatever, when I'm in the moment doing it, it isn't scary anymore because I was able to do that. And I think it's just that change in our mind a little bit. And I love what you're saying. It like relaxes our mind to not have us be scared of something that
you're just playing a role
might not do. Yes. Yeah,
exactly. You're like, this is just a role I'm playing. I'm an introvert extrovert. So, but in big groups, I'm super intimidated, and people are shocked by that because they think that I'm like this really outgoing person. So my business best self character, because I name my characters in the book that I read, really talks about that. It's Sarah Blakely. So what I started to do is I started to like find out all the things about Sarah Blakely that's what made me choose her. Is she's great at this, she's great at that. So when I wasn't feeling that way, I'm like, Sarah Blakely's showing up today. And so when I would go to masterminds, she's very outgoing and she's a lot of fun. And that was important to me too. And so I would go back up to my hotel room and basically like just anchor myself as the character. I'd read through the things and then I'd show back up. It's like I'm rehearsing Sarah Blakely. And I found that was so much easier versus the old me wouldn't want to do it. I'd stay in my room. So it is just playing the role, and eventually you do become it.
Yeah, that's great. Once again, I think this has just been another phenomenal episode. And I just Thank you so much, both you and Rachel, for just, I think we've got some great content here that I know our listeners have just been eating up as we have been going along here. As we finish up, if you were to leave anybody with some final thoughts on some of the things we've been talking about, and anything you think that you want to just impart on us as we're wrapping up here.
Yeah, I would say focus on your identity. I'm obsessed with habits. I want to become known as like the habit master, but every single book I read, always the good ones that really teach you, it's all about first finding like that character that you want to be. Really be clear on who you want to be, because otherwise you're just going to be a short term. It's going to be for a season. And I really wanted to change who I was, not just what I'm doing. Like for many years after I lost my weight, I used to always say, I lost it, but it's just what I do. And that's a lot harder to play the role of just what you do. Whereas when it was who I became, I don't have to fight with that person anymore. So it's really identifying what you want to be, because your identity will knock you back down. Because it's like someone that wins the lottery. Most people that win the lottery, do you know that they end up bankrupt like 10 years later? You want to know why? Because they didn't change who they were. They are still the same person. It's the same thing with weight loss. The reason why you don't keep it off is because you really didn't change who you were. You were just good at following something for a season. So start with your identity. When it goes back to the core values, who are you as a person? And it doesn't mean, and put who you want to be. Don't write down all the negative things about yourself. Instead, go, who is my best self and what does she look like? And the more details you can give your brain, the better. Make up stories. Like I write down full on journals of who I think best self Amy is. And in this situation, when she goes out to eat, she's still pausing and not like gorging herself. Like I write down all the details. So it just becomes easier and I'm not battling that internal back and forth.
Yeah. I love that. And again, I just take that back to even on the business side of it. Who is your best business self? Who are you as the best leader of your company? Who are, and if you can envision where you're going, everything that you just said, whether it's on a personal level or on a business level, is going to help you. And I just had a thought just for a second about anchoring. I think the other thing is, when you think about anchoring, I think it can be really easy for people to anchor in the negative versus anchor in the positive. And one of the takeaways that I'm getting from everything that you and Rachel have talked about is I think it can be so easy for us to anchor in that I'm not a good communicator. I'm not a good leader. I'm not good at going out and meeting new people. I'm not good at that. And so you anchor in this place of just negativeness. And I love what you're saying of even flipping the switch there and not dwelling on that anchor, like releasing that, let go of that and think about changing even the perception of how you anchor. Cause you might not even, I wouldn't have thought of it that way. Now, definitely my eyes have been opened up a little bit, but I think that's so easy to get stuck on the wrong side of
you
that.
can anchor negative. Ed, one of his biggest negative anchors was he was at his relative's funeral and everyone came up and they were patting him on the back and like feeling sorry for him and all that. And he goes, later, this is how powerful like touch is. When people would pat his back, he went right to that funeral and right to you're going to either let your life it's going to just happen regardless. So be intentional and find all the positive things and praise yourself for all the good. We're already hard enough on ourselves as it is. If all of us as humans would share our inner dialogue, I think we'd all be pretty like shocked and sad. So it's find the positive in yourself because you'll chase it. It feels good.
Yeah. That's great. All right. So Amy, if people want to find out how to follow you, how to hear your podcast, get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yes, my podcast is FIT, stands for Faith, Family, Fitness, Food, Formula, and Forgiveness. I think I said them all. And I'm on Instagram. Come follow me on my stories. I love to hear from people. I really love, that's my fun place. It's just I get to let loose. And then, of course, on Facebook, we're Lean Bodies Consulting. So if you ever needed any wellness help, but it's really personal development. It's all the same. They're all just parallels, whether you want to make money, whether you want to lose weight. They're all come down to the same basic principles that we need to follow in changing who we are.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I know you're going to get some more followers from today's podcast for sure. If you remember from last time, I like to finish up with the speed round. Now, I'm not going to hit you with the same questions. I'm going to go a little harder on you. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So how about this one? Describe your style in one word.
Lululemon. It's athletic wear. Athletic wear.
That's a great one and comfortable.
Yes, yes.
What are you listening to or watching right now?
Listening, anything personal development wise, I'll listen to Andy Frisella. Reading wise, I'm always personal development, but TV, I am trash. I am Real Housewives. I'm sorry. It is like my checkout.
I think we all need something, and there is no judgment on my part for sure. All right. What do you do that is just for you?
I would say just for me, it sounds crazy, but I like organizing. It's like my peaceful place. So I am happy when I've got 5 kids. And so if I can just find my little space, so that's probably my own personal thing that I'm just doing just for me. And I like it.
No, that's great. That's great. Do you have a hidden talent you want to share with us?
Singing.
Yes,
Singing is something I had one bad experience when I was 18 and I've never sang since. And I sang for professional things like all growing up and got scared. But now it's one of those things that I might bring back.
I think let's say you haven't sang since then, Amy. Remember, you and I did a little church thing together.
You're right. You're right.
I have
and didn't I cry?
Yep. I think you're gonna need to bring the singing Amy character to life. I think you're gonna have to bring her to life. All right. And then if you had a big, hairy, audacious goal, if you have one, and wanted to share it with us, what would that be?
Writing a book.
Ooh.
It's one that deep down I secretly want to do, but it's one of those that you just don't want to necessarily share because you're afraid, but that would be my one.
Yeah, that's great. Again, Amy and Rachel both, thank you. Thank you for being on the podcast. Another fantastic episode. And so hopefully maybe we'll even get to talk to you again at some point.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. See you.
Bye.
Bye.